What builds trust is making a real connection with someone, having an honest conversation about their needs, not what we're trying to get out of a situation, not what I'm trying to accomplish via working with you in a partnership, but keep it simple. Go back to basics. What's in it for me from their perspective? And really looking to see, how can I best bless this person with what I have to offer? And if the answer is I can't, we be respectful and we give them their time back. We thank them for the interaction and we leave a good taste in their mouth so that if the needs do come in the future, the bridge isn't burnt. Never burn a bridge. Always treat people with respect, with honesty, and it's okay if someone doesn't buy. And if you're walking into a room with that atmosphere, you're already disarming everything they expect from a salesperson.
Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Charlie Van Liew on our podcast today. We're featuring him in just his story and his amazing experience with all the clients he's working with and doing. Charlie, right off the bat, tell us a little bit about like high performance. What does that mean to you? What does that look like? How does that kind of cultivate some of the things that you've been doing in your life?
Yeah, great question, Nathan, and thanks for having me on. High performance, to me, looks like someone who is not stopped by the adversity that they see in their life. Someone who sees that adversity not as a barrier, but something that is intended to make them better in one way, shape, or form. And I think reorienting the way we look at adversity is a huge catalyst for growth and personal development, and that could be inside the business or outside of the business, whatever it may be. So I think looking at the trials in your life as blessings and looking at the challenges that you're facing as a positive thing, you're going to see a life of high performance if that's embraced, because most people will stop at the adversity. And if the answer for you is I will not stop, then get out of your way. There's a lot you're going to accomplish.
And tell us a little bit of the audience of what you do. What do people know you for? Like, give us that high level overview of like who you are and the success that you're able to deliver for clients.
Yeah, so I think big picture, I mean, people can't know me without knowing that I'm a Christian, I'm a family man. Those are the most important roles in my life. And so if you don't know that about me and we're friends, I've failed, because those are two of the biggest things in my life. But outside of that realm, I'd say for me, I'm an orator, I'm a speaker, I love storytelling, I love relationships, I love helping people understand new concepts and kind of that teaching spirit. So I really enjoy that. But I'm a dad. I'm a nerd. I work all over the place. I have hyperfixation, so I have 30 different hobbies at any given time. But that's kind of a superpower in the business world if you can control it. And so I think one of the things that I can offer to people that I work with is I have an ability to really get deep into their business and understand their value, understand their market, their product very quickly, and absorb their ecosystem very quickly so that we can speak directly to how you gain a voice in that space. And so, like many people, I mean, you could use hyperfixation or whatever as a crutch to be a victim, or you can weaponize these things that others would call a horrible, detractor from your success, or you can figure out how to make it work. And, that's part of getting older and figuring out how you make the most of who you are. And that's who I am. I like talking. I like meeting people. I like, learning new things and learning every little, aspect of whatever it is I'm pointing myself at. And I think that's just fun. And when you apply that to business, there's no way you're not going to have good outcomes when you fully understand something and you go forward with purpose because you're informed. We don't just throw shots in the dark. We learn, and then we implement, and then we adapt, and we implement, and we keep rolling with the punches. So,
yeah, something that I love about you, Charlie, is that there's aspects of your life in success in different realms, right? There's different buckets for it, right? Mm-hmm. our salvation, your wife, your kids, your career, your vocation, and you speak quite a bit to different people on different topics. And tell us a little bit about what you do there. Like, what's your story? Like, how do you go about like helping shape your speaking? Because I think there's some roots behind why you're speaking what you do even from the very beginning of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's do that, because going back and understanding where I come from has actually been really helpful for me too in understanding, who am I in the workplace? These are questions you ask in your teens, your 20s, sometimes if you're late, your 30s, 40s, 50s.
Sure.
You're never too late to start. But we moved a lot when I was a kid. I think by the time I was out of high school, we had moved around 13 times. And I bring this up because how do you survive as a kid in elementary school and middle school making friends if you're moving all the time and you can't have a solid long-term relationship with your peers? We learn how to speak. You tell jokes. You be the storyteller. You be the life of the party. And in some ways, there were some downsides to that, some lessons that I learned there, that if you're always the jester, people won't take you seriously. But there's other sides that I learned to that now I have the ability to speak to anyone, not be afraid of any conversation, regardless of if it's a board of directors or a president of a large company or what have you. It's just another person. And those experiences in the past gave me the ability to be able to come in, have a conversation, have it feel natural, and be warm, be inviting, be fun to be around. And those are things that came from stuff that was admittedly somewhat painful in my childhood. Having to say goodbye to friends every couple years and all of that. And
was
so
your dad in the military or something that caused
that's the first thing people ask. No, it was just a lot of reasons. I mean, sometimes it was a couple jobs, moving to new areas for dad to be closer to work. Sometimes it was my parents kind of reacting, there's not a lot of kids in this neighborhood. We want Charlie to be around other kids. And I was an only child until I was 7, and then my little brother, Hank, was born. And so, it was really just weird circumstance. And I guess the answer to a lot of problems that befalled my parents was, hey, why don't we move? And so, that was their answer to a lot of the things that came their way. And I don't have any resentment or bitterness because, again, that's part of what God used to make me the man I am today, imperfect as I am. I mean, these are things that have blessed me in the long run and given me a great career. And so I think that's also a part of it, is don't take identity in the pain of what happened in the past. Look for the opportunity in it. Look for the ways that, that can shape you into something better than you were yesterday. But I haven't always had that mentality. It took time.
Has that kind of shaped your skill in learning sales? Because I know more often than not, like there's a skill to learn with sales, right? And you had to adapt it over the years in your career, in your sales positions, and then with your own business, and then even speaking and helping people online. There's like the big overlap with sales and marketing, and you've had to, train people and help people with that. What was it back at the very beginning that helped you learn those skills or like evolve into the person that you are now with that?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of unconventional wisdom. I've kind of beat to the sound of my own drum, and done that, marching to the beat of my own drum. And every time I read a sales book early in my career, I just always came to the conclusion that this is not me. I'm not the guy that is going to find some tactic, some verbiage that's going to twist somebody to doing something I want them to do for my benefit, and they're just a part of the equation. I kind of reject that. I don't know if it's the elder millennial in me and the whole our generation loves authenticity thing or whatever it may be. I think my success in sales has been due in large part to my commitment to have honest, integrity-filled conversations with people. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to be honest when something that I do is not a good fit for somebody. I'm going to be honest if something's not performing the way that we intended it to or hoped for it to. And I'm committed to every time I have a conversation with somebody, if sales is involved, the truth just wins. So I'm going to be honest about what outcomes may look like, how we'll handle certain situations and all of that. And I think just having down to earth conversations with people with no airs, no weird, sales hat on your head. You're having a conversation with another human being. Be normal. Be a person. And I think that's been a little bit of my secret sauce, because it's sincere and it's authentic for me to be that way, but I think for others it's very disarming, because you're having a conversation with someone that isn't promoting that they're trying to extract from you. And it makes the conversation lighter. I'm totally happy to be self-deprecating and inject humor and all of that in my sales meetings. I rocked a mustache for a while and totally looked like Ned Flanders. And so, throw a couple jabs in the mirror and that kind of thing, and just laugh and be people. And honestly, I kind of break a lot of the rules, and I go do a lot of my meetings with people in person. That's kind of a scary thing for a lot of salespeople these days. But my goodness, after COVID, people crave connection. They crave good conversations. They crave interesting conversations. And I think just by being natural, being who I am, not trying to be some other sales guru that I followed. I'm not trying to be Alex Hormozzi or whomever. I'm just being me, while at the same time knowing my stuff, because you can't purely just converse your way into sales. You have to know your product. You have to know your stuff. But at the same token, you could be the genius that knows your topic front and back. But if you can't communicate, if you can't connect with somebody, good luck trying to sell it, unless you're meeting with a purely like engineering mind prospect that just wants to see the nuts and bolts.
It's an art, right?
Yeah.
Like learning conversation should come natural, but most of the time people have the hardest time with it, especially the younger generation that is behind more of a screen than actually more in front of people, and teaching kids even how to do it. And sales it has a bad rap, because it really does. Movies out there like Wolf of Wall Street or The Boiler Room or other sleazy type of stuff, and people and take it the wrong way because it's that manipulative way. I know in my sales career and what I've taught a lot of my students over the years is the same thing. It's like you got to be real, who you are, but there's a way to have a conversation that's pretty. It needs to come across serving people. Like what part of that too? With what you do, there's probably the flow of a conversation that could be taught, right? But having that flow, that authenticity that you talked about, the approach to service and helping other, how does that hinge off? What would you say some techniques or thoughts behind that approach? Because I think you and I resonate a lot about that, because maybe it's just because of our core values of being Christians that just comes across of like, how can I serve and help this person that's in front of me right now?
Yeah.
And that the caring part, the serving part goes so far rather than
it has
just
to be real techniques. Too. People can smell it when it's not real. They know when it's just a paycheck or a commission you're after. Everybody can smell that from a mile away. And I think the hinge upon which all sales turn is trust. And that's the problem with so many of these like sales handbooks and 12 steps to, increased revenue and all of that is, if you're just trying to work a system over somebody, that doesn't really build trust. What builds trust is making a real connection with someone, having an honest conversation about their needs, not what we're trying to get out of a situation, not what I'm trying to accomplish via working with you in a partnership, but keep it simple. Go back to basics. What's in it for me from their perspective? And really looking to see, how can I best bless this person with what I have to offer? And if the answer is I can't, we be respectful and we give them their time back. We thank them for the interaction, and we leave a good taste in their mouth so that if the needs do come in the future, the bridge isn't burnt. Never burn a bridge. Always treat people with respect, with honesty, and it's okay if someone doesn't buy. And if you're walking into a room with that atmosphere, you're already disarming everything they expect from a salesperson. Because as much as I've done sales over the years, I've been in customer experience and post-sale customer care far longer. And so I think that actually had a big impact on my sales methodology, because I've been on the other side. I've been on the onboarding side of salespeople that are wheeling and dealing and selling the dream, and then customer experience is the nightmare of unmet expectations. And I just can't do that to my teams. I can't do that if I'm selling something to someone who wants to work with me in a branding capacity or something. What am I going to do? Butter them up with some big dream and then I can't execute? What kind of relationship is that? What kind, you wouldn't treat your wife like that. You wouldn't treat your best friend like that. Why are you going to treat another person made in the image of God like that? And so we need to have a respect for the people we're talking to. They're not a means to an end. They're a person that has needs and problems that need solving, and that's ideally what you're there to help them with. And so focusing on your value and building that value by just communicating that you are trustworthy, and you do that by shaking hands and looking people in the eye. You do it by getting to know each other a little bit before you even start talking shop. Bring up an anecdote, have a little bit of a conversation before we get down to business. Nobody wants to, have the door closed, you sit down in the boardroom, you throw your hands on the table, and you immediately start pitching. Like, that's going to put people's guard up right away. Again, if you wouldn't do it at a dinner party with your friends, why are you doing it with someone in the business world thinking that you're going to get different outcomes than someone being uncomfortable? And so
when you started out with customer roles, sales, doing branding and marketing, there's a big overlap with all of those things together with your skill that you had. Was there some moments from the very beginning? I'm just relating this to a lot of our hearers here that are entrepreneurs or other people that are in success mode, but they're just looking for like a little edge around some things in their life. And I love what we talked about with sales of things. But bring us back. Has there been some moments that things were tight and stressful and overwhelming, and there had to be this aggressive grind and approach in your life, not to burn people, but to like get yourself in high gear that allowed you to have an edge about things? Tell us a little bit, a few of those stories around that.
Yeah, so I think, this is a big thing that, goes into some of my speaking and my keynote work that I do. Is I do have a talk on this story in particular. But, as much as I've had success and the Lord's blessed me with a wonderful life, I was in a bad place 3-4 years ago. I was, 25, 30 pounds overweight. Everything on paper you could think of that was going well, it was there. I was in my first 6-figure position. I was doing well, owned my own home, a beautiful wife, 3 great kids, great church, good community around me. And yet here I was in this really dark place, spiraling, and thinking, thoughts that should never be thought, thoughts that I know intellectually, are sinful and weird, that, I would want to potentially hurt myself or do something like that. And, I think it stemmed from this fear of failure as a dad, or fear of failure as a husband and letting people down. And I remember, sitting in my office one day, and it was just really near the end of the spiral, and just had this moment of clarity. I think it came from the Lord, but it was really, if failure is what you're really afraid of, then there's no greater failure than what you're thinking about doing, because all you're doing is taking the pain that you're feeling, and that is mostly self-inflicted. It's my own self-review of my state of affairs, and you're putting all of that pain onto your wife and kids in the future. Can you imagine, all of that transferred to them if I were to have made that move? And so when I had that clarity of these thoughts are only going to lead to increased failure, I need to go in a different direction. And so I started small, and this is kind of where the love of the grind, the love of effort kind of started coming from was, I'm here I am, overweight, depressed, not in a good spot. No real justifiable, rational reason why that should be the case. So that was kind of messing with my mind too, is why am I even experiencing this in the first place? And so I said, what's one thing that you can do that challenges you and would maybe have you respect who you see in the mirror a little bit more? And I had just randomly come across some videos about cold therapy before it became the it thing. Now everybody talks about cold therapy, or bust. And so now it's kind of a meme. But, I was like, well, what if I try that? It's supposed to have some benefits, and it's definitely uncomfortable. I bet I could do that. So took cold showers for a week. First time I did it, I almost hyperventilated and fell over in the shower. But then by like day 4 or 5 of doing it, I realized that, I went from only being able to handle 15 seconds. Now I'm in the shower for 2 minutes with, ice cold water in February, coming out of the shower head. And there was just something about that went, this seemed impossible a few days ago, and now you're already further. And it just started this snowball effect. I started asking myself questions like, well, what if you went and did push-ups in the garage? What if you got a couple free weights? Well, what if you just worked out a couple days a week? What if, and that just started to build momentum. And what I started to learn was that this adversity, this challenge, these hurdles to climb over were a blessing. Because if we don't have a load to bear as men, we stagnate and we atrophy. And so by introducing challenge and adversity into my life in controlled ways, because this wasn't insurmountable adversity, like a nationwide civil war or something like that. This was controlled. There was agreement between myself and I that I was going to take on these things, but I committed to them. I said, if I'm going to go against this, I'm going to go against this. And it just started turning into this big snowball effect. And before I know it, I lost 20 pounds. My energy just completely returned. My mental capacity, even just within the first 3 or 4 weeks, had completely cleaned up. The dark clouds and thoughts were completely gone. I needed to just move myself and use the body that God gave me, and it brought healing. And I think what happened was when I was in this very sedentary retreat from adversity, retire into entertainment or escapism kind of mentality, it just creates exhaustion. Because if you're not in some level of physical fitness, the day is tiring. It absolutely is. And we all know as fathers, you work all day, then you come home, work doesn't stop. You got kids, you have a wife to love well, you have people to lead. And I didn't have the energy to do it, so I was just continually taking withdrawals from this bank account that was already in the negative. And by increasing my fitness and being more active, what I was actually doing was giving myself a bigger tank to work with. And I found myself not being exhausted at the end of the day when I'm walking in the front door after work. I found myself exhausted when my head hit the pillow at night. And that was a much better exchange. And so, long story, coming from a dark place, ending in a happy place. I'm in a better spot than I ever have been. You ask my wife, I'm a better husband than I ever have been at this point. Completely imperfect. Millions of caveats, but much, much better spot. And I think a lot of it is just really embracing that fact that if we don't have wolves in our woods or a mountain to climb, we're not going to grow as men. That's what we need. We need adversity. We need a dragon to slay. We need something to conquer. And you can do that righteously. You can do that in a way that isn't 80s Schwarzenegger, machismo. You can do that in a way that is the simple masculinity that God's created us to have. And it's a blessing when you embrace it. And you learn you're not made of glass. You learn that you can accomplish things if you keep working at it. You can make improvements. And you just take that mentality and you put it in any sphere of your life with intent and with a goal, you're going to see progress. You're not going to regress when you're in that state. And so the whole point of that is that goes right into sales. That goes right into marketing. Is okay, let's have goals that used to scare us. Let's set a bar that is so seemingly impossible that we have no choice but to shoot for it and get better. A lot of people talk about SMART goals, and I think those are good when you have a bigger picture bar that you're going after. Do your SMART goals to get to that bigger bar. But I think that was really big for just my own personal discipline. You have to have personal discipline in sales. No one's going to pick up the phone for you. No one's going to follow up on that quote for you. You have to have that personal drive and not be afraid by it, but be fueled by it.
And I think there's a lot of people that like steer into like growing up. I mean, we're naturally this way, but we lean toward what is easier, what's comfortable, what's like really easy. And you get to a point in your life where it's like things are so easy that it gets worn out and everything. And I remember reading, I mean, this might be helpful, but this helped me push toward growth in a lot of way where it's uncomfortable. Yeah. Like the gym is hard, but it's good. Every good thing for you is hard. Every bad thing is easy, like fast food, right?
Yeah.
And I remember this passage in Romans 5 where it talked about affliction or suffering, right? And it's really interesting. I think this might resonate with it. It's like affliction produces endurance, and endurance produces that character, and that character produces the hope. This hope will not disappoint us because God's love has been poured out in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who is given to us. And so it's like sometimes there's the aspect of self-inflicted challenges and puzzles that we have to deal with because it's self-imposed and we're just stupid sometimes and making the wrong decision. Yeah. And then there's some part of like leaning in to the hard and realizing, hey, things are hard, but that's the journey, and that's okay. Because more often than not, when we think of it as being hard, we think we're on the wrong boat or the wrong thing.
No.
And that is
there's a better you on the other side of that.
Yes. And I think the clarity point that so many times we disconnect it because we think we're leaning toward pleasure, and anything that's hard it should be the opposite of what we should do. And then that doesn't allow that growth that we actually need to, and to developing that character. And then, like you're saying, that the hope that you lost, but then you now had it even more defined as you're having the keystone habit, as you would, they would say, to allow you to really kind of readjust a lot of things in your life that helped build a lot of that.
Yeah. And I think that's where, we talked about the controlled adversity. That's where the gym is just such a blessing, because regardless of the uncontrolled adversity in your life, you can train for the unplanned adversity by daily engaging with that planned adversity. And that's one of the blessings of the gym, is it teaches you to not listen to pain. It teaches you to not listen to, I can't do this, I can't do this. I remember distinctly one time I was going for a run. I was maybe a couple months into kind of getting things back on track and everything. And I'm in the middle of this run and my legs are burning. And this is not me. If you know me, I was never the grind set like David Goggins guy growing up. I was the work sucks, anything that I can do to not work more. That was my mentality, growing up. So this is not coming from someone naturally in this spot. But I'm running, my legs are burning, and my whole body is just saying, you just need to stop running and just walk for a while. And I remember just having this moment with myself that just said, shut up, you're lying to me. And I just kept going. And that was this weird moment for me. It's like, wow, like everything I think isn't necessarily the truth, and that's really important. We have to be able to push back against that. Stop, it hurts. Stop, I'm tired. Not to injure yourself or anything like that, but our body will seek that homeostasis. It'll seek that place of rest. And we don't get anywhere if we don't learn how to push past that in a healthy way. Yeah. And so I think that's really, really big for personal development. It's really big for business. It's going to impact every facet of what you're doing as a professional. But again, we were made for a load. This is a feature, not a bug of reality, especially of being a man in this world that God's created. It is a feature that we will face adversity, and that for some wonderful divine reason, we become better men when we're facing that adversity, and we become 100%. Worse men when we seek comfort and sloth and the easy way out. Adversity is the way forward.
I love that. Well, how can our listeners here follow you, connect with you further, if they need help with, branding or marketing or help with sales, or they need a keynote speaker at their next conference? How can they connect with you further just to follow along on your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is paladinnorthwest.com. So Paladin, like the old French knights from the Middle Ages. It's my company. I can be nerdy if I want to. So paladinnorthwest.com. You can also find me. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. Just linkedin.com/Charlie Van Liew. You'll see me there. So feel free to look me up there. Also on X a lot too. So you can look me up the same way there. All my stuff's on my website. So feel free to take a look there. But yeah, if you're looking for someone to speak on, self-betterment, change management in business, brand marketing, that's my cup of tea. I love it. It's fun, and we can make it fun. It doesn't have to be a drag.
Appreciate you being on the podcast here. And if you've resonated at all with some of these conversations, we have many other episodes coming along, and so listen in. We're glad we were able to be able to connect with us today.